Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to another installment in the K&SV and Scenic Valley Railroad build. If you were watching last week, you saw me get the wiring finished and all the turnout controls installed. In this week I installed the third level fascia. And that step is always a major transformation in any model railroad build because it really adds to the finished appearance of the railroad, especially after it's painted. In order to get a great first-hand example of that, compare the last two pictures in the slideshow after this video. So without further ado, let's just head out to the workshop and get to work.
Well, it's Tuesday morning. I didn't get out here at all yesterday because I didn't finish my errands until after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Anyway, my main task for the day, I wanted to get fascia on the upper level so that I can install the controls properly. But then I realised that I haven't done the formers on this aisle. I still need formers in here and on this side to be able to get it to sit properly. The back aisle is all done, so that's not a problem. But I want to start over this side where I'm using the taller ones, then use the offcuts over the other side. Well, before I went in for lunch, I got all the blocking sorted out on this side, around this front aisle, on both sides, and put in missing pieces around the end for this benchwork joint and the next one. But I was wrong about what I said earlier when I thought this back aisle was finished. I've found a few more pieces that were missing. There's a couple of blocks I've just glued in there and two more in at this end of this benchwork joint. Okay, now I think all the blocking is done and I should be ready to install some fascia. I've already got a few pieces cut. Let me just recycle all these clamps and get back to work so don't go away. Well, yesterday I was not able to spend very long out here and I only got one piece of fascia installed, but I did at least get all the blocking done. Hopefully today I will have more visible progress. I'm not going to talk a lot, just going to get on with it. So don't go away, I will check in with you again later. Well, even though I haven't been out here very long this morning, I have already installed 3 pieces of fascia. This short piece is put in here because the end frame across the window is too long for one piece. I've got a 2-piece anyway, so rather than adding a silly 3-inch piece on the curve, I started off with the offcut that I already had. And now I've cut the other one to length. There it is. I have run out of clamps, so I can't put it in just yet. So what I'm going to do is go back to the start and I'm going to start marking out the switch controls on the piece that I put in yesterday. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Well, as I mentioned when I was doing the lower level fascia, I decided to invest in Forstner bits to drill the holes here, and they are so much easier. Give a nice neat hole and there's no fighting to get the plug out of the hole saw. There is the 1 1/4 inch hole for a crossover, and there's a 1-inch hole for a regular turnout. Of course, there's an old saying that there's no task so simple that it cannot be fouled up beyond belief, and the very first hole I drilled the wrong size. This is meant to be a crossover and I started with a 1-inch hole. So here is my method of fixing it. I've just cut a 1 1/4 inch hole in a piece of plywood and screwed it to the front of the fascia to act as a guide for the Forstner bit. So I'm just going to correct that quickly and then get back to work. Well, here is that enlarged hole that I showed you just now. If I hadn't told you about it, you'd never have known that I got it wrong the first time. Anyway, I've just come back out from a longer than normal lunch break. So the glue on this fascia should be set enough I can get rid of the clamps, recycle them and move around to the end, install a few more pieces. So let me just do that and I'll be right back. Well, that is 3 more pieces of fascia installed, 2 long ones at this end and a shorter piece above the helix at the other end of the railroad. I've also drilled most of the holes for the turnout controls. There's a few missing because the drill bit was getting too hot, so I'm just letting it cool down now. You may notice that the holes are at different heights. That is to make it easier to figure out which turnout it goes to. Normally I like them at the same height, but where we have a mass of turnouts with some behind the other, it makes it a lot easier to work out which one is which when the ones further away are higher up on the fascia. So anyway, that's enough for now. Let me get back to work and I'll check in with you again later. Well, I have now finished drilling all the holes along the main yard, and I've installed a few more pieces of masonite. The fascia now goes all the way to the end of the aisle and around the end curve, and once again I am out of clamps, so that's about as far as I can go for now. So I'm going to go in, take a break, and I will come out when I'm able to recycle some of these clamps. So don't go away, I will check in with you again later. Well, it's Thursday morning. I didn't get back out here again yesterday because my AC repair guy arrived and he didn't leave until it was too late to come out and do anything else. Anyway, the first thing this morning is to recycle all the clamps, and I think I should be able to get all the fascia in today and get the rest of the holes drilled. So that's my goal, and hopefully I'll also get this spackled ready for painting. So don't go away, I will check in with you again periodically. Well, I have now installed about 30 feet of fascia around the peninsula. I got as far as here. I just have about a 9-foot straight section to put in, but I have no more clamps. I even brought in another box of clamps from inside, and I've used all of those as well. Anyway, I started in this area, the reason being that these clamps will eventually be able to be recycled to glue on the piece the other side, and then while that's gluing I can drill all the holes for the switch controls. You may notice how it ends a little bit short of the end. That is deliberate. Same with this side. The reason being that the frame does not go all the way to the wall of the room. Depending on how straight the room is and how the layout fits, it could be as much as an inch further away. And I want the fascia to butt tightly into the wall at both ends. So anyway, I'm going to go inside now, get something else done, and I will come out in a bit, get rid of these clamps and continue. Don't go away, I will check in with you again later. Well, I've just come out again after a fairly extended early lunch break. I have removed all the clamps from the first about 14 feet of fascia. That is all the space I need to work in with the controls for this town, and it yielded plenty of clamps to finish that last 9 feet over the other side. So the next thing to do is to mark out the various rows like I did the other side. If you recall, there are 4 parallel lines an inch apart, starting 2.5 inches from the bottom, and depending on how far back the turnout is, which line the control ends up on. So I'm going to do exactly the same the other side, and I will be right back. Don't go away. I've now drilled all the holes for the branch line, both in this area and over the far side at the intermediate town. And you may also notice that I have cut down the fascia to a reasonable profile. For the most part, it's still maybe half an inch or an inch above where I think it should be. That's because it's a lot easier for the client to cut it off again later when he does the scenery than it is to add more. But where it was before, for the most part, it was blocking the view of the trains. Particularly on an upper deck or any other area where the railroad is fairly high, close to eye level, it's generally desirable to have the scenery lower than track level in the front. So that's what I've planned for when I designed the railroad. this area along here that is still left straight, that's where the Amtrak station is going. So I've left it straight for now. I think it is still probably a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch higher than it ultimately needs to be. That gives us some tolerance. So anyway, I think I'm going to go inside for a bit, give this glue a little bit longer to set. That's only been there a relatively short time. And although the end curve has been in for a few hours already, I want to give it some more time, because of course that is the one that's going to spring out if it's given the chance. So as I said, I'm going to go inside for a bit and I'll come out later and finish cutting it down, and then probably spackle it today so that I can sand it tomorrow. So don't go away, I will check in with you again later. Well, as you can see, I have removed all the clamps and I have finished cutting down the fascia. This one I've left a few bumps in the river because I'm thinking there might be some rocks and maybe a small island, possibly in the vicinity of this rapid. So I haven't worried about getting the fascia removed all the way down. It's probably going to need to be a little bit of a ridge here to look right. And then this corner calls for a residential street across the diagonal, which in order for the river to look right needs to be slightly above track level, which is why I've left this straight. Here I think will be a nice scene. We're almost at eye level, looking straight through under the bridge to the river winding its way into the distance. I haven't cut down the fascia in front of the branch line yard. A good portion of that will be paved, so it'll be flat. I just don't know what level it's going to be. At the moment it's probably 1/2 inch too high, but it's better to leave it too high than cut it too low. That's another area that the client will have to trim when he's ready to do the scenery in that area. The only joint I haven't spackled is this one. That is because I need some slack here to be able to get the sections apart. If you recall, there's a piece of 1/4 inch plywood between the two sections which is not glued, so once the bolts come out I'll put a tool in there and tap that out, and that will give me a little bit of tolerance between the sections. Anyway, all I can do now is wait for the spackle to dry, and I will come out either later today or tomorrow morning, sand it and paint it. So don't go away, I will check in with you again later. Well, this is Friday morning. I have just sanded all the spackle on the joints. Now it is time to get out the black paint and paint the fascia. Let me do that quickly and I will be right back. Well, that is the first coat done. I've gone all the way around, everywhere on the top level. The diorama dividers, and this side, the peninsula on the bottom level, was not done before, all the way around here as far as this transition piece. I'm going to go inside and get all the fascia control mounts painted while the paint sets out here, and then I'll come out, hit it one more time, and then that job will be done. So don't go away, I will check in with you again later. Well, I now have a second coat on everything. I've also spray painted all the fascia mounts and a few spares. I'm just going to give this time to dry, and then I'll come back out this afternoon and I can start installing the controls permanently. So don't go away, I will check in with you again later. Well, I am pretty pleased with this afternoon's progress. If we look around the railroad, we can see that all the upper deck controls have been installed. Including those at the end of this aisle. There's still a few places where I've got to tidy up the wiring, but the next task for Monday is to give everything a good clean and run everywhere, test everything. So until then, I will say goodbye for now, and I'll see you later. Don't go away.
Well, that's all for this week. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I trust you will agree with me about how much of a difference the fascia makes, particularly where it is cut down to a profile which approximates to the eventual scenery. The reason for that is that your mind will fill in the missing scenery once it sees the wavy edge. So anyway, that's all for this week. Hope to see you again next week. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.